Professor.
You're gonna find this hard to believe.
I was sent here for you.
From the future?
50 years from now.
Could you give me that one more time, please?
Stay with me.
In the beginning, the Sentinels were just targeting mutants. Then they began targeting everyone.
Lucas here again for another movie review. Today we are talking about the highly anticipated film X-Men Days of Future Past, the 7th installment in the X-Men franchise, and of course stars Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, Michael Fassbender as Magneto, and James McAvoy as young Professor X. And we also have the old cast from the older X-Men films, and we also get Halle Berry as Storm, Patrick Stewart as Professor X, Ian McKellen as old Magneto, and they combine these two casts in this time-bending, time-traveling plot. In the future, the Sentinels, one of the X-Men's greatest nemesis, these robots have been programmed to target and kill all mutants and any humans that aid the mutants. And in this future, the mutants are almost extinct, so the Kitty Pryde has to send Wolverine's conscious back to 1973 in order to team young Professor X and young Magneto together to stop Mystique from assassinating the creator of the Sentinels, Bolivar Trask, here played by Peter Dinklage. Out of all the films in the franchise, I've seen X-Men 1, parts of The Last Stand, the Wolverine, and First Class before I saw this one. And so I loved First Class when I first saw it, and I liked the Wolverine, and I was interested in seeing them bring the two casts together because I'm a little bit distant from the original cast because I just didn't grow up watching them as much. But I have to say, X-Men Days of Future Past not only blends the cast together, but is probably tied for my favorite X-Men film in the franchise. Let's start with the performances from everyone around. James McAvoy as Professor X to me is really the standout here. The whole movie kind of focuses on his arc on trying to regain his hope after the events that transpired in First Class, and trying to gain back the relationship with Mystique, and also maybe trying to reconcile his friendship, or at least get on somewhat of good terms with Magneto. The movie has a lot of great character moments for him, and his arc is really the emotional one of the major emotional anchors throughout this whole thing. And James McAvoy is fantastic. He is extremely great in conveying the dilemma between young and old, and the scene in the movie between him and Patrick Stewart I thought was fantastic. Michael Fassbender is as cool as always as Magneto. He had great outfits on through this movie, by the way. Great costume design. But I think what's great about these movies is the relationship between Charles and Eric, and the debate and between their philosophies, and them trying to rebuild their friendship after what happened in First Class. So I really like those scenes. I thought there could have been a few more of those, but again, I thought he was great overall. He was really, really awesome in the action sequences. The whole damn plot of this movie basically revolves around Jennifer Lawrence, and she has, obviously, because she is one of the main focal points in the movie, she has an emotional arc, but she also gets most of the time to shine in the action sequences, which are fantastic, and she has a lot of the coolest scenes in the movie. And what is so difficult to do that this movie does well is balance between the present and the past. You don't get a lot of the present, so for those that are really going to see like the old cast, you're not going to get a lot of them in here. But that being said, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen are great, but they only have maybe about 20-25 minutes of screen time in total. But I felt that the times that they went back to the present were very necessary, and I thought they did a great job balancing that. But I do think that they allow the main story in the past to breathe without any intrusions from other dimensions or timelines. This movie has a lot of action, and most of it is pretty incredible. The climax of this movie is big. It's crazy. You got almost two climaxes in one. You got the one in the present, one in the past, and I thought everything was handled very well. It was always action to push the story along, and all of it was extremely well directed. And I think a lot of the main scene that a lot of people are going to be talking about is the scene with Quicksilver. fantastic. But above all, this movie just manages to get the emotional weight of the story to connect with the audiences. The stakes are extremely high, and the Sentinels I thought were great in this movie because every time they were on screen they proposed a giant threat, and you really there's a lot of scenes where X-Men are getting like shredded to pieces by these things in really gruesome ways, and it really just adds to the horrific effect that these things might end the X-Men. Every one of the emotional beats work here, but whether it be between Professor X and Mystique, or Professor X and himself, or his relationship with Magneto, I thought everything was just handled very well on top of this extremely plot-heavy story and the movie with a ton of action. They managed to also make the characters just as important. I don't really have any complaints except that the fact the movie does feel a little bit long near the end. I was kind of waiting for it to wrap up a little bit towards the third act, but that also could have been because I was extremely hungry in the movie and I wanted to eat. So that could just be a small nitpick. But overall, I really love this movie. I think it's one of the best films of the summer and probably of the year. I'm going to give X-Men Days of Future Past 4.5 stars out of 5. So that's my review of X-Men Days of Future Past. Let me know what you thought of it. Did you think that it corrected some of the mistakes that the series made earlier? That's another great thing that this movie does, is not only make a great standalone X-Men film, but correct some of the wrongs that the series made in the past. Let me know who your favorite X-Men character is, and are you looking forward to X-Men Apocalypse? Thanks for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.
In the future.
Do I make it?
No.